everyone, my name is Stephanie Person, and today we're going to talk about truth versus the myths regarding the ketogenic diet. Now, a lot of you guys might already know who I am because I have been fighting the good fight for years, trying to really clarify what is ketogenesis, how do you get into ketosis, how do you avoid the pitfalls, and pretty much the truth versus the myth. So let's get this poppin' now. All right. Does the ketogenic diet help you lose weight? Yes and no. Let's talk about why. Weight loss is not about calories, contrary to a lot of people who believe that it is about calories. It's about how your body uses, how your hormones use those calories, how your hormones function. And that's a big myth today. A lot of people believe, well, I'm eating all these fat calories, so I'm not going to lose weight. Or the ketogenic diet is about weight loss. It's not about weight loss. Being in a state of ketosis continuously on and on and on is not normal in nature, but it is possible because I've done it solid for over 14 years. But there are pits and there are downfalls and there are incredible benefits that outweigh the downfalls. What you guys need to understand is that you have to eat a lot of fat to then making it kind of short and clear to lose the weight. And how you do that is you start to balance your glucose. And glucose is going to be dictated by what's happening to your glucose is going to be dictated by insulin. That's a hormone. If you are insulin resistant, that means that the insulin signaling to go and grab glucose and put it somewhere that your body can use isn't working very well. So a lot of that glucose from the carbs and stress that you are accumulating in a normal standard American diet begin to be stored as fat because your body doesn't understand the modern time. Your body thinks you're living outside, so it thinks it needs all this stored energy. It doesn't understand that the refrigerator's right there. So what it does is store when it's under crisis. And reading one bad text puts from your cell phone can put your body into a state of crisis. Shoot your blood sugar up. Insulin, eating carbs. Now, I explain this a lot. If you eat a piece of bread that has 33 grams of carbohydrates, the body's like, what's that? I don't know what that is. Because in nature, if you ate something like wild spinach in season, and then purge out the oxalates later, but if you're eating something like wild spinach, you're going to have like a big, huge 2-3 handfuls of it. You're going to have about 8 grams of carbohydrates, if that. Then your body can equal that with insulin. 8 grams, not literally 8 grams, but it'll balance it. It'll take the carbohydrates from that spinach and it'll be used as energy. But if you have a piece of bread that the wheat has been crushed and smashed, and now you can put a bunch of carbs in a little piece of bread, now we're up to 33 grams of carbohydrates, and the body doesn't understand that. So it has to overshoot insulin to take that glucose and put it into the storage closets called your fat cells. Those are your safety storage places for an emergency. But we're not an emergency because there's food right there. There's no lions outside. Body doesn't understand that. We begin to train our body how to store, and not very efficient at burning the fat in your cells as triglycerides back as glucose. That part of gluconeogenesis is very difficult for a lot of people because the hormones are broken. So the myth is that you have to eat low fat. And the truth is eat low fat to lose weight. And the truth is no, you can actually get into ketosis and access those fat cells that are difficult to access the triglycerides within the cell. And now the body's like, well, we're not in a crisis. Let's take that fat, convert it into ketone bodies, and use it as energy. But the truth is also that it's very difficult because our bodies have been primed to burn glucose. It's like addicted to carbs. So how do you get your body to become addicted to ketones? And that's a lot of experimentation and discipline. And maybe not listening to people who don't know what they're talking about. But I digress. Now, the myth, again, is that calories matter, that if I eat more fat calories, I'm not going to lose weight. No. If your hormones are working great, that means your glucose is not going to shoot up too high, which means less insulin, which means less broken insulin, because you're not just vomiting out tons and tons of insulin and then the signaling gets lazy, and not lazy, but weak. That is something I really want to preface, that people need to understand that you don't count calories on a ketogenic diet. You count macros. You need to understand how much fat you're getting in, what protein is doing. But we're going to talk about protein in a second. Next truth. Can the ketogenic diet help fix the thyroid? Yes! By what I just explained, because again, it's about your hormones, right? The thyroid hormones and the thyroid gland. Once you understand how to get the right minerals and vitamins and Mother Nature's sun onto your skin for that vitamin D, you can regulate your hormones for your thyroid. And because your blood sugar isn't going up and down due to that bread and that rice and that quinoa and that fruit, now the body can relax and not be in this stress mode of, oh, my blood sugar is way too high, so now it's going to fall and crash, and now I got to get it back up to the middle. So insulin, then glucagon, then insulin, then glucagon, and then they both stop working these hormones effectively. Once you start balancing your blood sugar, now you can start balancing and eating the right foods with the right nutrient density. Now you can start balancing that thyroid hormone and following a circadian rhythm. A lot of people fail on ketogenic diets because they don't go to bed on time. They don't wake up. They don't follow a rhythm. They don't follow a human rhythm. They don't follow a biological rhythm. And they don't follow a circadian rhythm because they have what? Phones in their faces, which are still telling your brain that you're running from a lion and that it's still daytime at nighttime. It's about your hormones. Now, another hormone is melatonin. A lot of you guys aren't producing melatonin. So the truth is, if you don't get enough sleep, you're not going to produce the ketones. And if you don't produce the ketones and your carbs are low and you're not making enough ketones and glucose down, the body's going to start having to go into the body factory, eating its own muscle to feed that fledgling brain. Now your body's stressed again. And the more that you don't sleep, the more you don't adapt, the more you don't make the ketones, and the more your body has to go and eat its own protein from the body to convert back into sugar so you still stay alive. A lot of people don't follow these things, and that's why they don't succeed. So the myth is that you don't have to worry about stress or anything on a ketogenic diet or not sleeping. You totally do. Let's keep it popping. Can doing a ketogenic diet protocol damage the thyroid? Yes, it can. How can it damage the thyroid? By eating the wrong food, by eating keto junk products, which I'll go into, by not balancing the blood sugar, by not eating every couple of hours. So the truth is, it can heal and fix hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, and it can damage and create Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. And it's both. It's all about you learning about your own body. Do you get enough iodine from seafood, seaweed, oysters, anything from the sea? Are you balancing your electrolytes? Because another truth is that you really need to balance your minerals. Because if you don't, you can create kidney problems. Yes, from chronic dehydration, which means a low kidney function. You don't want a low GFR. I mean, you don't want to risk your organs not functioning properly. So then here comes the truth myth on protein. Can you eat a lot of protein on keto? That's a myth. The truth is that if you do eat a lot of protein, then the body can only chew, swallow. You only have so much stomach acid. A lot of you guys have a low hypochlorhydria. You don't even have enough stomach acid. You don't have enough protease. You don't have enough digestive enzymes to even break down the protein that you're shoving in your mouth because you're afraid of fat, which a ketone, ketogenesis, ketones are units of fat, not units of protein. So the myth is that you can adapt on high protein. No, you're just on a starvation diet at that point because you're not eating enough carbs and you're eating too much protein and you can't get stored glycogen from protein. You don't get energy from protein. That's a myth. The truth is you get energy from carbs, sugars, or fat. So when you eat high protein, what your body cannot use, because a lot of you guys, again, have insulin resistance, you have low stomach acid, so what the body can't use converts back into sugar and blocks your keto adaptation. The truth is you have to have low to moderate glucose. That's 1.8. That's for ketones, but the glucose has to be between 70, I would say more, because I've been sort of watching people over the years, a good number is 77. But from about 73 to 83, in that range of milligrams per deciliter, I'm not talking about millimoles, per deciliter, a sweet spot would be around 77. If you're 83, it's not the best, but it's not the worst, milligrams per deciliter. Now, in millimoles, you want to have between a 4.4 to about a 4.5 is your range. After that, your blood sugar starts to be too high. And then the body's like, well, why would I use ketones when there's enough glucose right here? Not for stored energy, not for glycogen storage, but for blood glucose. And then that blocks the production of either viable ketones or ketone viable or use, or the amount of ketones. If you use a glucometer, it'll completely squash this idea of high protein for a ketogenic diet. You don't need to even listen to me. Just go use a glucometer, watch your blood sugar shoot up, and then go test your ketones, which should be between a 1.8 and a 3.0, with the sweet spot being a 2.0, and watch you not have viability. I don't mean urine strips, I mean blood glucometer, not a continuous glucose glucometer, but a actual one prick. That's the truth. Watch your protein. Now, another myth, again stated, is that if you don't have enough, if you eat a little bit of fat, it's enough. Or you don't even actually need to eat fat because your body's going to produce ketones. That is true, that your body can produce ketones without eating any fat, but they'll be low. Or you'll notice that the blood sugar over time, over even a week, will be like skyrocketing. And then this false sense of being in ketosis will just go bink. Now, another myth is that you're in ketosis at a 0.5 ketones. Ketones, viability does not start until around a 1.5. If you're under a 1, 0.5, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, it's not ketosis. Having ketones be that low can damage your thyroid, your adrenal system, your reproductive hormones. That's the truth. So when people think that they're in ketosis because they see a 0.5 or 0.8, that does not mean that you are adapted and that your body's in ketosis, because I think that term gets used too loosely. Let's go more over these truths and myths. Another myth is that people think that if they're not hungry on eating fat, then they're in ketosis. No. The truth is you have to eat if you're not hungry. You have to understand the difference between gallbladder problems and adrenal issues. If you're barfing out adrenaline, that's going to kill hunger, because a lot of adrenaline is the fight or flight reaction in the body, and the body's not going to go eat a Big Mac while it's running from a lion. Even though we live in the modern time, stress mimics that. So people are like, oh, I'm not even hungry. So, like, why would I even eat fat? You have to know the difference between that, and you also have to know the difference between I'm not hungry because my gallbladder is mad at me. Yes, my gallbladder has sludge or stones, and so therefore it's so difficult to break down fat that when you try to eat it, you just can't. Even having a slight aversion to not wanting more fat beyond, let's say, if you have a difficulty tolerating 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of fat, you might want to look at your gallbladder. And these are things that people don't realize. So the truth is that your gallbladder should function properly to be able to keto adapt. And another myth is that, the high fat damages the liver. It doesn't damage the liver. It just has a difficulty, poor liver function has a difficulty to break down fat. It doesn't damage it. And the ketogenic diet doesn't damage people who've got kidney disease because you're eating moderate to low protein and your main source of food is fat. That's what's going to drive this ketogenesis. The body's got to learn how to create the enzymes to break down the fat, convert the fat via the liver into ketone bodies that can get into the Krebs cycle, which is the energy cycle, and get into the cells past the blood-brain barrier to keep you large and in charge, building muscle through insulin sensitivity, and not going into a process called gluconeogenesis or advanced glycation end product, which is called AGEs, which is the breakdown of your cells, which makes you age. Because your blood sugar now is it's balanced. It's in that homeostatic balance. And that's the whole goal. But if you keep thinking that eating a lot of protein is good for you, and you find out you have back pain and kidney problems and develop a low GFR, chronic dehydration, constipation, right? Because a lot of you guys develop constipation because your electrolytes tank because you're not taking magnesium. So with the carnivore diet, a lot of people think that you can get enough sodium, potassium, and manganese or magnesium from meat. You cannot. And a lot of people severely run into kidney issues because of too much protein and gout, dare I say. The truth is you have to eat moderate to low protein. High fat is a truth, right? Your carbohydrates, that's another myth, that you can eat 50 to 60 grams of total carbohydrates in keto adapt. You can't. You got to keep it under 20 total grams. That means pretty low. That means cruciferous vegetables, not zucchini, no carrots. You have to even be careful of things like cucumber because it has no fiber. Another huge myth is that avocados, they have too many carbs, so you can't adapt. That's not true. You can eat many avocados because there's so much fat and fiber that slows down the rate at which that glucose hits the blood. It drips into the bloodstream. So it drips slowly, which means low blood sugar. Eating avocados, if you don't have a latex allergy, if you do have an allergy or sensitivity to avocados, you can have high blood sugar. So that's another truth that people really need to understand. Do I have problems with cruciferous vegetables? Do they block iodine into my thyroid? Do I have allergies to some of the lectins and phytic acid in some of these plants? Should I cook them? Ooh, another myth is bone broth is so good for you. It's not, because a lot of people are reacting to the glutamate and the oxalates in the marrow. They leach out into the water. So that is a myth that bone broth is. I stopped promoting that. Another myth is MCT oil and coconut oil are great ketogenic fats. They're not. Animal fats are. We are not coconuts. Although we're not a lot of things that we do. But really the fatty acid profile of monosaturated and monopolysaturates, plus the fact of the fat soluble vitamins, and dare I say in butter and other egg yolks, the omega-3s, you're not going to get in coconut oil. And so with my experience of coaching people for so many years, people are adapting a lot better on animal fat. Now I could go on and on and on, but I think we're going to keep this under 20 minutes. Thank you, everyone. You can join me on my Instagram, Stephanie Ketogenic. You can book consultations through my website, stephanieperson.com. And I have a course at stephanieperson, do I know my last name, .com as well. I got some energy at 54, and there's just so much to learn. This is the best diet ever, and that's the truth. If done correctly, and if you go and follow what I'm trying to teach through you guys, because that's how I learn, is through my clients. A lot of them. And I'm out. Peace.